Welcome to week 7 as we enter the Summer of Love, 1967, the Summer of Love. Don't get that confused with 1969. 1969 was Woodstock, not the Summer of Love. Be sure you keep that straight. 1967, the Summer of Love. Some very important record albums were released in 1967. Let's find them right over here. Show and tell time. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So, in the folder here, if you see the reference to Sgt. Pepper's or SPLHCB, either one, we're referring to the most influential rock album of all time, The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967, released 67, The Summer of Love. Again, the most influential rock album of all time. It tops every list of the 100 greatest. Even, oh look, we even have the center insert, right there. So you can cut it out and pretend you're Sgt. Pepper or something like that. All the words to the songs. Not in the best shape, it's kind of falling apart. 1967, extremely influential. The Beatles really came of age. Also, 1967, the first album by some consider the greatest, most innovative rock guitarist of all time, Jimi Hendrix, his very first album, his very first American released album. Again, 1967, Are You Experienced? Let's look at the back shot. Jimi Hendrix, a lot more about him later. What a genius. One of the true geniuses of rock music. Why was he a genius? He was not just a very innovative guitar player, not just a good guitar player, but an innovative guitar player. Completely changed the way we think about the guitar, the way the guitar sounds. But was also a very bluesy singer and a great songwriter, and just came out of nowhere, burned brightly, and then was gone. A third album from 1967, again, the first album by the Grateful Dead. This one's in great condition. Look at that, that's a beauty. The Grateful Dead. There's Jerry Garcia right there, Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead. The infamous San Francisco band, very psychedelic back cover. So, 3 very influential albums. The Beatles, not their first album, of course, you know that. But 1967, the greatest rock album of all time, Sgt. Pepper. Jimi Hendrix's first album, Are You Experienced? And the Grateful Dead's first album. So, 1967, things are really happening. Rock and roll is coming into its own. American rock and roll is really getting more and more popular. All the West Coast bands, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane, Carlos Santana, Janis Joplin. But to move along, what else were we talking about this week? As we review TV comedy, we moved from Leave It to Beaver, where people still had separate beds even though they were married, to Bewitched. Now, Bewitched was somewhat of a groundbreaking comedy because it did show a woman in a stronger role and also showed Darren and Samantha sleeping in the same bed. That was very, very groundbreaking for television. So we'll talk about the movie Bewitched a little bit. Moving right along, we have a section on Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan. Why was Jimi Hendrix so influential? A great documentary on Jimi Hendrix, and also a little bit about Dylan and his switch to electric music. Dylan was quite the folky for years and then switched to electric instruments, and that caused quite a fuss in the folk scene. Movies. Remember our big 3 of the 60s, of the late 60s, after Virginia Woolf. We're talking about the big 3 after Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf really broke down the Hays Code with its language. But then, after Virginia Woolf, we had Bonnie and Clyde, we talked about last week. A breakthrough with violence in movies. But this week we talk about Easy Rider, drugs. Next week, Midnight Cowboy, sex, drugs, and violence. Violence with Bonnie and Clyde, drugs with Easy Rider, and sex with Midnight Cowboy, the big 3. So we're going to talk about the movie Easy Rider, featuring Peter Fonda, the great Jack Nicholson, and Dennis Hopper. And we've got a short section on the MC5, possibly the most influential band you've never heard of, but what a great story. The MC5, they stormed out of Detroit preaching revolution. A little section on the MC5, and then of course our discussion forum, and also our quiz. Don't forget about the quiz. And so, if you have not turned in a paper, I see there are 8 or 9 people who have not yet turned in a paper as of the creation of this video, which is Tuesday afternoon. If you have not yet turned in a paper, you need to do so ASAP. You can still turn it in, no problem, that it's still open. You must submit it within the Blackboard folder. You can't submit it online. I'll send you an email back. Excuse me, you can't submit it to me in an email. I'll send you an email back saying, sorry, I can't accept this, please submit it online like it's supposed to be. But late papers, they are late as of now, will be marked down 10% for each week. So you'll lose 4 points for this week automatically right off the top. If they're later than this week, you'll lose 8 points, etc., till we've run out of points. So dig into the folder there. First we'll talk about the anti-rock book, and then we'll go right into the Summer of Love and hippie culture and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.